Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today to have a chat about the Mountview MA/MD course. Let's introduce everybody. So shall we start with Joe, as you're at the top of my screen?
Hello, I'm Joe. I did the Mountview course in 2018. 2017 I started, finished in 2018. And I'm now freelance musical director, musical supervisor out in the world of musical theatre.
Arlene?
Hello, I'm Arlene. I did the course 2016 to 17, so just before Joe. And yeah, since then I'm also just out in the world working as a freelance MD.
And Catherine?
Hi, I'm Catherine and I am a current student on the MA/MD course, so I'm in the 2021 cohort.
Lovely. And I'm Richard. I'm the course leader and look after the aspects of the course tuition and the projects that the students work on. So just to sort of start as an introduction to the course is a postgraduate master's in musical direction, and it's ideally targeted at people who have an interest in pursuing music leadership professionally. Usually that's in the context of musical theatre, but many of the skills are also translatable to other areas of music leadership in the workplace. The course focuses on the core skills that are required by the modern day professional. And as part of adjusting the course and updating it last summer, we looked at how the industry has changed and the requirements that are going to be made of young musical directors starting in the industry now and also going into the future, including aspects of technology such as main stage and programming and logic and click tracks. On the course, we look at key areas of piano skills, keyboard skills. They're very important. The industry has a very high standard of playing, so we look at that. It doesn't mean that you need to be an expert concert pianist when you arrive, but just to have a facility and an interest in developing skills in that area. We also look at conducting, leading bands, leading singers through a performance, as well as taking them through rehearsals. We talk about coaching singers, working on areas of vocal technique, as well as interpretative skills for learning songs and putting them across in a show. As mentioned, we also look at areas of music technology, which mainly encompass main stage, which is programming for keyboards, and logic, which is making backing track arrangements for shows that play along with a live band and with live singers. We look at supporting techniques as well, like coaching a singer, dealing with a still vocal practice, as well as coaching a singer through an acting journey and interpreting lyric and music text. A big part of the course is also assisting and working with a wide range of top freelance musical directors. We're very lucky being situated so close to London that we get to work with a great many of London's top musical theatre MDs and musical supervisors in the West End, and the students get to work directly with them over a period of weeks, sometimes over a month and a half on a project. These can be in-house shows that perform to other students, as well as public shows. That's probably enough of me talking now. So let's start off with the first thing I'd like to discuss as a group. Why choose training? Why not go straight into the industry? What benefits do you think training has to prepare you for your pathway in the industry? Who'd like to start us off with that one?
I'm happy to.
Lovely, thanks Joe, that would be grand.
So yes, I had this very dilemma myself when I was a student at university, and I knew I wanted to be a musical director, and I was thinking, do I go down this road of doing a course or not? And I decided to, and I'm glad that I did. I think when you are before I'd been to Mountview, the industry of musical theatre can feel very closed off. You don't have often a lot of access to knowledge about how the inner workings actually are. And I remember my first thing I did at Mountview, I was assisting a brilliant MD called Ollie Jackson on one of the third year shows. And I remember just like chatting to him and finding so much about the actual one of the things that was particularly interesting was that the way that music departments are structured on shows. So when I was at university, we did lots of shows, but there was just a musical director. And what I've kind of learned since is that when I was being a musical director for a university production, I was being a musical director and a musical supervisor and really an associate musical director and kind of all those things, and often orchestrator and arranger and all of that stuff. And I had no idea how that was actually structured. I'd never even heard of a musical supervisor, which is the job that I now do. So yeah, just learning kind of all about that stuff. Really a year to figure out what's going on, also making lots of mistakes. It's a good opportunity to kind of get those initial mess ups, you know, in a context which isn't too scary. You know, it doesn't really matter if you mess up a few times in that first year. That's kind of how you learn. And I think the one other thing I'd say about it is that you get a really good opportunity to kind of hone your style of musical directing. If you're sort of thrown into the deep end, you kind of have no opportunity to figure out how you want to do it, and learning from loads of different people, particularly doing the assisting, you find out what kind of styles of musical directing you want to do and you feel work well for you. So yeah, you just kind of get a chance to figure out what's going on.
Lovely. Thanks, Joe. That's a really interesting perspective. What about for you, Arlene?
A lot of the sort of same things. The other thing for me is I'm originally from Glasgow, so the concept of moving to London and just being an MD, I wouldn't have known where to start. And I didn't know anyone in London really, and like Joe said, I didn't know how anything worked. So it was almost like a stepping stone of just setting myself in London, getting to know some people, making some connections, and then seeing how that works, and really just learning really simple things. Like, this probably sounds really, really silly in hindsight, but when I got to Mountview and they said to us in the first week, reach out to other MDs and go and sit in the pit with them and get to know people, I didn't even know that people would let you do that before I came to Mountview. So that was, and now I'm like, of course people would let you do that. Well, fingers crossed that they still will now. But so yeah, all that kind of thing. And then it was just, I also came down, I knew like a lot of my things in me as an MD, I felt like I was pretty good at, but I was not hugely confident in my piano playing. And I could play the piano obviously, but sight reading was a bit of a struggle for me. And it was just an opportunity to be in this sort of, I was going to say pressurized environment. Obviously it's less pressurized than in a job, but where I just had to do it and I just had to get better and I just had to learn it. And I don't think if I hadn't gone through the training, I wouldn't have had that situation where it was like, okay, this is how you improve and you need to do that right now. So yeah, that was what was felt that would just not have been a thing I could have done stepping straight into it.
Sure. And Catherine, as a current student, kind of what was your pathway to choosing training?
So it's very similar things actually to Joe and Arlene, especially the kind of what Joe said about the industry sort of not being shut off, but if you don't know people in it, trying to make your way into it, for me, felt like a very daunting task. And like Arlene, I'm from a town up north, like it just, the thought of coming to London and just being like, hey, please give me a job, was just, that's why training to me appealed a lot more. And also as someone, I kind of had a different career before deciding to do this, and so for me training was a really good way to kind of brush up on some skills that were maybe a bit rusty, and also as you mentioned, like music technology, that was something to me that was quite very new, and I suppose I could have like looked online and done online tutorials and things like that, but to have actual lessons and teaching and how to use all that kind of thing, I thought would be really, really beneficial. And also just as a way of making contacts as well, like you said, with all the assisting that we do, and just already I'm like a term and a half in, and I've already sort of met so many different MDs that work in the West End and things. So yeah, that was my thinking behind it.
Lovely, that's brilliant. What are the areas that you noticed the most personal growth in your kind of professional practice as a musical director during your time in your training? Where did you kind of go from feeling unconfident, or maybe even not knowing something existed, to feeling like you'd kind of mastered something and were ready to go, industry ready for it? Would you like to start us off, Arlene, on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. As I kind of touched on a second ago, I think my biggest area was my piano playing, and just because the nature of the course that we accompany rep classes for all of the actors. When an actor just comes to you with a song and says, "Can you play it?" and they just have this sort of undying faith in you that no matter what they hand you, you'll be able to play. And I think then you don't want to be the person that goes, oh my goodness, no, I can't do that. So you just have to do it. So that I think really helped me. But also there was a lot of things, and this was something I didn't really realize until towards the end of the year, was that there was a lot of things that when I was coaching an actor or looking at a song that I just took for granted that other people would recognize in the music to help them with their acting and stuff. And I think it was realizing that pointing out things in the music, whether it was in the text or in the actual score, to help the sort of acting journey, it might not have been something that everyone picks up first thing. So just realizing in myself, like, I have the confidence to point things out to people and not always assume that they already know all the things that I know. So to have that, and to have that recognized and be like, well, no, if you told them that would have been really helpful. And again, that was another thing that where tutors and stuff would say, like if we were chatting afterwards and they said, well, you should have said that to the actor because they weren't doing that and they wouldn't have known that. And I was like, oh, okay. So I do have things to offer, that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. Confidence is such a big part of being an MD, isn't it? Joe, what about for you?
I think sort of not that dissimilar to what I was saying before about the kind of variety of people that you get to work with. I mean, that's one of the things particularly interesting about Mountview, is that it's such a big school and there's so many different projects going on, so many different students, so you get to work with lots of different types of people, and I suppose the knowledge that you get from working with different kinds of creatives about how different kinds of people work, I think that variety is really important. And not just talking about MDs, I ended up playing for lots of choreography rehearsals and different projects and worked with loads of different choreographers, and it's really little things like, how do you know if a choreographer wants you to play for this bit or whether or not they just want to count through it? And it's just like little words that they might say, and kind of just picking up on those little things as you go through that sort of like industry knowledge is really helpful. And then the other thing I would just say about kind of things that I really found helpful in terms of my skills, I would say the focus on a still voice technique at Mountview is brilliant. And we kind of had singing lessons with a focus on how you would coach as well, but just kind of learning about the voice. I remember coming to Mountview and being really nervous that being an MD was, you needed to know about voice technique. And I was nervous about that because I think, when you're coaching somebody to sing and you're working with their instrument, singers only have one voice, and it's kind of scary to be telling somebody how to use it. And I always felt I didn't really have the capacity to do that because I didn't know, and I didn't want to, destroy somebody's vocal cords. So having a really sort of quite scientific approach to the voice that you get taught doing as still is amazing, because it means that I had the confidence to then talk about voice rather than kind of shying away from it for fear of destroying somebody's voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Catherine, you're only halfway through the year, but how are you finding things like that? Where have you found you've grown the most in the last term and a half?
I mean, I think in sort of every aspect, really, I've definitely grown and learned a lot. As I said before, like, music technology was something that was completely new to me. And if someone had said, oh, can you program this keyboard for a show, I wouldn't have had a clue how to do it. And now I do. And also with Logic as well, especially at the minute, given the current situation, we've been making loads and loads of backing tracks for singers that need them for online classes and things. And I wouldn't have known how to do that without sort of the music technology lessons that we've been having on Logic and things. I think another area is also conducting. I'd done a lot of keys conducting, but in terms of stick conducting, that was something that I hadn't had a lot of experience in. And so to have like an intensive course in that was really, really useful, and gave me a lot more confidence in being able to do that. And I think, like Arlene was saying about sort of the ATS and rep classes, I kind of knew that a musical director had a role in it, but I hadn't kind of appreciated or known how to kind of go about that. And I'd have taken it as more of a, oh, well, that note wasn't quite right, or make sure you breathe there, rather than actually getting involved with the actual acting part of it. So that's been really interesting. And also in terms of rep, I kind of thought, love musical theatre. I know loads of musicals, and actually came to Mountview and all of a sudden people are giving me songs from musicals that I've never heard of. So it's been a really good learning experience in terms of there's so much more rep out there than I ever knew there was.
Yeah. Oh, there's lots, isn't there? Absolutely. Yeah. Great. And I suppose the last of the question is, how do you feel, well, I suppose for Joe and Arlene, how do you feel the training has influenced your sort of career path? And just perhaps you'd like to tell us a little bit about what you were doing up to the pandemic, and hopefully we'll be doing once it's over. Who'd like to go first on that one?
I'll go first.
Lovely. Thanks, Arlene.
So, I mean, the course influences everything I do every day in work. And I think, I'm constantly thinking back to the training and stuff. And I think the biggest way that I don't think that I've had a job since I left Mountview that hasn't come in some way or another from someone that I met when I was at Mountview. Mm-hmm. So like Joe and I worked together, and initially through someone else, it was through the Mountview alumni network that our paths crossed and stuff. So so Joe's obviously the supervisor on 6, and then I'm the MD of the tour, or was the MD of the tour until, and hopefully will still be when it all kicks off again. So we met through the Mountview thing, and I'm always, even in problems that crop up in shows where technology or stuff stops working, then I kind of did no main stage a bit before I came to Mountview, but I learned how to sort of fix things when they stopped working when I was there, and that comes up all the time. And even in just the way that I approach other people and the way that I hold myself in work, is things that other MDs have said to me, when we worked with, when we were assisting other MDs, and just the way that they would say, you're the person in the room who needs to know everything. And even if you don't know everything, you pretend you do and you find it out for the next time. And just all of that, I hold myself in such a different way than if I was just chatting with my friends. And now I think the important thing for me as well, that all of the work that I did at Mountview didn't just stop when I left, and that I have occasional I have occasional sort of lessons, with piano lessons and just general MD stuff with an MD that I worked with at Mountview, and we've stayed in touch for the last 4 years, and she helps me loads and things like that. So yeah, it's always there.
Good, lovely. What about for you, Joe?
Yeah, I completely agree with Arlene. I think it's a good point to mention that 6 is quite a tech-heavy show, and I really appreciated at Mountview having a lot of that stuff taught to us about how you do that kind of tech side of things. And I think the industry in many ways really is going that way. Keyboard programming and click track stuff, I did a panto job that was really helpful for that as well. So yeah, I definitely think that the training that I got was absolutely invaluable, kind of in a day-to-day basis. In terms of influencing my career path, I think one of the big things, it really is contacts, because that is ultimately how this industry works. And because there aren't that many MD courses out there, I know that I'm often, to 6, we're often looking for staff for new kind of up and coming MDs. And often the first port of call is going to be who's graduating from the MD courses. And as a Mountview alumni, I often am wondering who's coming out of Mountview all the time. So I think that's a really big part of it. Also, I was so lucky to make lots of contacts there, so if I'm in a sticky situation for work, there's lots of people that you can call on and pits that you can go and sit into. So yeah, I think the other thing I would say as well about how it kind of influences your career path is that you see the variety of the career that you can have as an MD. There's lots of different types of careers that you can do. Being as I was saying earlier, the difference between being a musical supervisor and a musical director, I realized was a big thing, and being an assistant musical director and an associate musical director and working in different kinds of musical theatre, be it panto, be it kind of there's just so many different options. And from just chatting to the people that you work with and assist and that you're tutored by, and the other MDs on your course, and the MDs who've done the course previously that you end up just getting to know. You learn about the kind of lifestyle that you want to have and the kind of career that you want to go down, and that's a really invaluable thing. It's really useful.
Absolutely. And so for you, Catherine, I know you're only halfway through the course at the moment, but has the training you've done so far and the people you've met so far helped shape any potential pathways you might like to explore when you graduate, or open up new things you haven't thought of?
Yeah, I think so. I think I came not with a narrow-minded view, but kind of had an idea of what an MD was, and you know, been to see shows and kind of done lots of Amdram stuff in the past. But actually, you know, like just sort of opening up the different types of MD roles that there can be, and particularly for me, like I'm really interested in singing and like the Estelle method and things, and that's something that I'm really keen to sort of further, and I'm doing my master's project on how the Estelle voice method works. So I think that's something that sort of is definitely interesting me in terms of working with singers in more depth, I think, at this stage. And also, yeah, just meeting all the different MDs and seeing all the kind of different things that they've done. It's just been really, really interesting.
Lovely, thank you. That's been a really interesting discussion. Thank you very much. Very informative for me to hear your perspectives on the course, which otherwise I might not get to hear. I'd be delighted to hear from anybody who'd be interested in applying or has any questions. We can, of course, supply you with more literature and more information about the course content and how we keep the course up to date with modern industry trends. And we'd be delighted to hear from you. Thank you again to Joe, Arlene and Catherine for their contributions.